The 2021 NBA champions were not able to defend their crown after being bounced in the second round by the eventual Eastern Conference champions, the Boston Celtics. But there's no reason to panic. The Bucks were without their third star in Chris Middleton for that series, and the Big Three remains intact heading into next season. However, what we need to talk about today is the possibility of that depth being changed for next season. So let's talk about it. Giannis had another MVP caliber season, and although he didn't win it, was very much deserving of it and was personally my pick for it. And he had another great year where he continued to be a two-way presence, a two-way dominant force, and asserted himself in my eyes as the undisputed best player in the league. Chris Middleton was named to his third All-Star team, and quick kudos to myself, I was one of very few people who predicted that All-Star nomination. His efficiency did drop this season though. It was certainly not his best season, and he picked up his play towards the back end of the year and then of course unfortunately missed some time due to injury. Jrue Holiday had another great season as he continued to be one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and Bobby Portis stepped into the starting lineup due to the injury of Brook Lopez and filled in very well. He continued to be a very good spacer, he continues to provide very good energy and rebounding, and has quickly become a fan favorite in Milwaukee. Brook Lopez missed the majority of the season and ultimately really struggled to find his three-point shot in the playoffs. And at age 34, after a significant injury, we unfortunately may be starting to see the last couple of years of the career of Brook Lopez. Grayson Allen was a solid, risk-free addition for the Bucks during the offseason, and it paid dividends as he continues to be a fairly good three-point shooter and spacer. Wesley Matthews was a good veteran addition, and although he's nowhere near his prime, he can still give you a very impactful presence on the floor. Someone who can still hit threes at a relatively efficient rate and gives great intensity and physicality on the defensive side of the ball. Pat Connaughton had arguably his best season as a pro as he enters into a contract year, continuing to provide very valuable bench production and three-point shooting, and George Hill continued to be a veteran presence at backup point guard. But at age 36, he continues to be nowhere near the quality of player he once was, even just a few years ago on this Bucks roster. As previously mentioned, the Bucks' Big Three is locked in and intact again for next season, but impending free agents do include Serge Ibaka, Wesley Matthews, Jordan Nwora, and Javon Carter, but even more importantly, we have player options for Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton, both of which I would fully expect to opt out of those contracts and enter free agency. And so let's start with those player options, specifically Bobby Portis, the most important free agent of all Bucks players this offseason. And he was re-signed last year after winning the title to an outrageously good value deal at the time. And even though it was only a 1-and-1 deal where Portis could opt out of the second year as he now will, even just for 1 year to get Bobby Portis at about $4.5 million is ridiculous value for the level of production he has given the Bucks before this contract and over the course of the 2021-22 season. However, even with Bobby Portis likely to opt out of his contract, there isn't grave concern about him leaving as far as I'm concerned. The fans in Milwaukee very much like Bobby Portis, and Portis has found his place in the league in Milwaukee after bouncing around a bit and being a bit of an issue off of the court. And it does seem likely at this point that Bobby Portis will return. That's not to say that there won't be significant interest from other teams, because there will be, and if the Bucks aren't willing to pay him significant money, then they might lose him. But if the Bucks pay him something in and around a rumored deal of 4 years, $48 million, then I would expect the Bobby Portis will return as a Milwaukee Buck and be there as a starter or as a bench piece, depending on how they move forward with Brook Lopez for the foreseeable future. Pat Connaughton is also not an insignificant part of this roster and could also opt out of his deal this summer and increase his yearly salary by at least a few million. I would expect the Bucks to highly prioritize the re-signing of Pat Connaughton, especially considering other depth piece Dante DiVincenzo was traded away at the deadline, essentially meaning they have very little depth outside of Pat Connaughton in that type of role. If he does opt out, he could re-sign at a 2-year deal worth around $8 to $10 million. But on the other hand, Pat Connaughton could opt in, wait for the long-term security of a 4-year deal that he would be eligible for in the 2023 offseason. But either way, I would expect the Bucks to retain Pat Connaughton for next season and in the long term, regardless of whether he opts in or out. Regarding some of their free agents, the Bucks should not look to retain and re-sign some of their expiring contracts. They're just not good enough regular rotational NBA players anymore. Unfortunately, one of those players is Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka has had a great NBA career, but it's clear over the last year or two he has not been anywhere near his prime, and not even near the level where he was in Toronto, where he was a very valuable piece of winning a title. And we might be getting to the end of the career of Serge Ibaka, and I would expect at the very least is at the end of his stint in Milwaukee. Jevon Carter was added to this team midseason via the buyout market and did play for the Bucks all the way into the playoffs while George Hill was injured, but his role did significantly decrease when George Hill was back from injury. He can provide some fine defense and some level of playmaking, but his offensive production is very limited and ultimately is nothing more than a third point guard. The Bucks could keep him in that role if they want him as their third point guard moving forward, but if he can get a backup point guard role elsewhere, which personally I'd be surprised if he did, but if he does, well then don't expect him back in Milwaukee next season. If he does walk, the Bucks will easily be able to find a third guard replacement via free agency, so he certainly is not a priority. Jordan Nwora had a very good offensive preseason, garnered a lot of hype as one of the best scorers in the preseason, and there was a lot of people that suddenly had very large expectations for him headed into the season, some people of which hadn't even really heard of Jordan Nwora before the offseason, and now all of a sudden was hyping him up to have some great season. Well, unsurprisingly so, for someone that garnered hype out of nowhere, he didn't have that great season, although he did get the most regular rotational minutes of his NBA career. But his defense is still very poor. That offensive production and efficiency did not carry over to the same level into the regular season, ultimately was not overly valuable. Now, with only 2 years of NBA experience, there is still room for improvement, but his impact currently on this Bucks roster is not great. As a restricted free agent, I would expect the Bucks to re-sign him to a 1 to 2 year deal to give him a bit more of a chance to develop and see what type of player they truly have in Nwora. But I do not expect him to play a significant role in the Bucks rotation unless he really balls out again throughout training camp and the preseason. As far as free agent additions go, an upgrade of backup point guard would be ideal, but the Bucks are obviously over the salary cap, and so their free agent options are limited. At point guard, your options consist of Delon Wright, who continues to be an underrated but fundamentally sound backup point guard, and Raul Neto, who is another solid vet who could be added. The Bucks also have very few true wings on this roster, with a lot of guards and a lot of bigs. So a true small forward or power forward off of the bench could prove to be fairly beneficial. Some of these options could be Otto Porter Jr. if he does not return with the Warriors, and Daniel House Jr., who could be a valuable 3-and-D wing. Outside of that, the Bucks can't do much in free agency without their cap space, nor do I expect them to do so if they retain Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. As far as the trade market goes, the only tradable contract that the Bucks have is that of Brook Lopez, who I don't think the Bucks are going to be willing to attach assets alongside to make a significant move, meaning no significant moves will be made. But that's fine. They have their core. They have Giannis, they have Middleton, they have Drew Holiday, and they've proven with this group that they can win a title. The biggest part of this offseason is simply about maintaining their depth, maintaining their complementary pieces, maintaining Bobby Portis as a Milwaukee Buck, re-signing Pat Connaughton if he does opt out of his contract. They don't need to make big splashes. They have the group here that has proven they can win a title. You just need to keep the complementary pieces around to be able to have the supplementary depth to make another deep run in the playoffs. There is no need to overthink this. The Milwaukee Bucks are still title contenders. They had the best player in the world alongside 2 all-star caliber players, and the team has all of the makings of its 2021 championship winning team, with PJ Tucker being the only significant piece who has left. The Bucks still nearly got through the Celtics in the second round without Chris Middleton. So assuming health next season, the Bucks are no doubt a title contender. And moving forward, as long as Giannis continues to be the best player in the NBA, which I don't expect to change anytime soon, then the Bucks are going to be scary and they're going to be a threat to win the title every year. That is my thoughts on what's next for the Milwaukee Bucks. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content. Also, if you're looking for a place to hang out and talk basketball and talk NBA draft during the NBA draft, then I will be live streaming during the NBA draft from pick 1 to pick 60 on Thursday night. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Peace.